Have you ever driven at night, when the road seems to stretch infinitely ahead, and the silence is so deep that even your thoughts begin to whisper? Imagine yourself in the Nevada desert, surrounded by darkness that feels alive, with only the sound of the engine breaking the stillness. That's exactly how Jack Thompson, an experienced truck driver, found himself on that fateful night in 1997. Everything seemed normal, until he made a stop at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, an isolated station, forgotten by time. The shelves were stocked, but no one seemed to be around, and then the shadows began to move. What happened to Jack that night? And more importantly, how did he manage to escape the forces that held him there? I'm Raven Shadowmere, and this is another story from Midnight Mysteries. In today's episode, you'll discover how a simple fuel stop turned into a nightmare for Jack Thompson. And the worst part, he was never the same after that. And between us, there's a crucial detail we'll reveal at the end. A secret that will change your entire perception of this story. Are you ready to face it? The road stretched out before me like a black carpet under the moonlight, and the only sound filling the cabin of my truck was the soft melody of country music playing on the radio. The smell of the coffee I had earlier still lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of the leather steering wheel. As I drove, I couldn't help but think of all the nights spent on the road, of each stop at gas stations and the stories I heard from other drivers who crossed my path. They were stories of life, love, loss, and strange coincidences that seemed to carry a bittersweet taste. Oh, the life of a truck driver, I murmured to myself, a nostalgic smile on my lips. It's never monotonous. I remembered an old friend, Hank, who always talked about the unexpected destinations life had in store for us. Like that time he almost got trapped in a sandstorm in New Mexico. You have to be prepared for anything, he would say, and I always was. After hours on the road, my mind began to wander, until a bright light cut through the darkness ahead. It was an isolated gas station, like a beacon in the Nevada desert. The light pulsed intensely, almost as if it were calling to me. A shiver ran down my spine. Nothing like a stop for fuel, I thought, trying to shake off the strange feeling that began to settle in me. As I parked, I noticed how profound the silence was. After hearing only the sound of the engine shutting off, my ears tuned in to the night. I stepped out of the truck, and the fresh, dry desert air enveloped me. This will be the last stop of the night, I murmured, trying to dispel the growing unease inside me. With hesitant steps, I approached the convenience store. The glass door was fogged up, and the interior light shone like an invitation. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I called, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. The silence was deafening, and the atmosphere felt thick, almost palpable. I looked around, and there was no sign of life. The interior seemed abandoned, yet the shelves were still stocked. Strange, I thought as I glanced at the products on the shelves. What could have happened here? Before I could explore further, I heard a creak behind me. I turned to the door, and to my dismay, it slammed shut, as if an invisible force was holding it. My heart raced. "Hey, let me out," I shouted, banging on the door, as if that could help. A chill ran through my body, and a sense of claustrophobia began to take over. "What's happening here?" I asked aloud. But the only response was the echo of my own despair. I looked inside the store, and the shadows danced around me, as if they were enjoying my distress. The sound of the wind outside seemed to whisper secrets I couldn't understand. I tried to force the door again, but it wouldn't budge. The weight of solitude and fear began to pile on me. "Calm down, Jack," I murmured to myself, trying to focus. "You've been through worse." But the shadows around me seemed to mock me, and the feeling of being watched unsettled me. That night, I had no idea I was about to enter a nightmare that would change my life forever. With my heart racing, I looked around, searching for an escape. But all I found was silence and darkness, as if the gas station was closing in on me. The only certainty I had was that I needed to find a way out of that place before the darkness swallowed everything around me. The gas station door was locked, and I felt my heart racing as I tried to open it. The doorknob turned, but the door wouldn't move, as if it were glued shut by some invisible force. The silence was oppressive, and the only thing I could hear were the whispers that seemed to come from the shadows around me. "Jack, Jack," the voices murmured, and I wondered if I was losing my mind. I looked to the windows for any light, but all I saw were shapes dancing in the darkness. It was as if something was watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. "Hey, is anyone there?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the empty store. Silence answered, and a chill ran down my spine. The feeling of being watched grew stronger with each passing second. With a surge of desperation, I tried the door again, but nothing. In a panic, I scanned the store, looking for an alternative exit. What else could I do? As I rummaged through the store, my gaze fell upon a dusty soda machine. I approached it, and as I bent down, I noticed something shiny behind it. With a trembling hand, I pulled out a tattered diary, its yellowed pages seeming almost alive under the dim light of the gas station. The cover was worn, but still legible. Accounts of strange occurrences. My heart raced. If other drivers had been here before me, maybe they'd left clues. "What do you have to say?" I whispered to the diary as I opened it. The pages were filled with accounts from truck drivers who, like me, had stumbled upon that gas station during their nighttime routes. Some mentioned whispers, others spoke of shadows dancing between the shelves. Panic began to take hold of me as I read. I saw something moving in the windows. It wasn't human. I felt I wasn't alone. "Joram." A phrase made me freeze. It was a description I could have written myself. I kept reading, each story more disturbing than the last. One driver described how the voices called him by name, seductive and threatening. Another spoke of a feeling of faintness, as if being pulled into an endless darkness. "This can't be real," I whispered to myself, feeling adrenaline coursing through my veins. But with each page I turned, reality became darker. It was as if I were in a horror movie, and the only way out was what was written there. The need to escape grew, and I felt trapped between the walls of the gas station. "Jack, Jack." The voices grew louder, almost as if they were beckoning my own fate. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to regain my composure. "Focus, Jack. You're a truck driver. You've always found a way out." But as anxiety swelled, the feeling of despair wrapped around me like an oppressive cloak. I decided I couldn't stay paralyzed. I stood up and began rummaging through the shelves, hoping to find something, anything that could help me. The shelves were filled with dusty products, but nothing seemed useful. Desperation consumed me, and the whispers became increasingly chaotic, as if they were reveling in my suffering. "Stop!" I shouted, frustrated, my voice echoing through the empty store. "Where's the exit? What did I need? A light? A sign?" I made my way to the back of the store, where I found a door leading to a dark corridor. Curiosity and fear battled within me. I knew I couldn't stay there. But what lay behind that door? Could it be my salvation or my damnation? Taking a deep breath, I decided to explore. With cautious steps, I opened the door and entered the corridor. Shadows seemed to stir around me, and a wave of dread washed over me. I needed to uncover the truth, and this store was full of secrets I was determined to unravel, even if it meant facing the darkness that awaited me. The tension in the air was palpable. Each second spent in that convenience store made me more restless. I turned to my phone again, hoping that somehow, magically, the battery would have come back to life, but the dark screen stared back at me, a cruel reminder that I was completely isolated. "Shit, this can't be happening," I muttered to myself, feeling the anxiety rise. The darkness of the desert outside seemed to creep closer, as if it wanted to swallow everything. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. The voices whispering around me were getting louder and more insistent. It was as if they knew I was lost and wanted to consume me. With one last look at the locked door, I took a deep breath and refocused on the journal I had found. The yellowed pages seemed to pulse, as if they were alive. Maybe there's something here that can help me, I thought. I flipped through the pages, trying to ignore the fear that was overtaking me. A ritual. Yes, I had read about that. Something that could help me escape. But I needed to find a specific object. What could it be? What could possibly be in this place that would give me a chance to leave? With urgency increasing, I began to search frantically, rifling through shelves and drawers. Please, help me, I implored aloud, as if the walls could hear. The echo of my voice seemed to mock me, and the whispers intensified, blending with distant laughter. You won't get out of here, Jack, one of them seemed to say, and I shuddered. I focused on my search, forcing myself to ignore the voices. Each shelf I opened seemed to be filled with nothing, just remnants of products that would never be sold. The store was in a state of abandonment, and the dust in every corner was a reminder that I wasn't the first to enter here, but I needed to find that object. Finally, as I rummaged through a rusty drawer, a metallic glint caught my eye. My fingers brushed against what seemed to be an old key, ornate with designs I couldn't identify. Maybe this is it, I thought. Holding it tightly, the weight of it in my hands gave me a strange feeling, as if it were connected to something much larger than myself. But as I admired the key, the whispers turned into screams. You won't escape. You won't. You belong to us. Terror gripped me, and I threw the key onto the table, panting. Shut up. I don't belong to you, I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty store. The silence that followed was deafening. My heart raced uncontrollably, and I realized I needed to act quickly. If this key is what I need, then I'm going for it, I declared to myself, picking it up again. I just need to find the door. My steps were hurried as I walked toward the exit, adrenaline pumping through my veins. Each movement felt under scrutiny, as if the store itself were alive, ready to devour me if I made a mistake. The door was there, majestic and threatening, but I hesitated. The feeling of being watched intensified, and I could almost feel the weight of the shadows behind me. You can do this, Jack. You have to do this, I whispered, trying to encourage myself. The fear was almost paralyzing, but the thought of being trapped there forever was even more terrifying. I took the key and inserted it into the lock, feeling the cold texture of the metal against my sweaty fingers. Please, 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 I repeated in a whisper. The key turned, but there was no satisfying click. Despair washed over me. No, this can't be happening, I yelled, pounding on the door. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent. You can't leave, Jack. This is your home now. With my heart racing, I looked at the key, then back at the door. If I have to, I'll face whatever's on the other side, I declared, a cry of defiance. Whatever was there couldn't keep me prisoner forever. The fight for freedom was just beginning, and I wasn't going to give up. I felt the cold key in the palm of my hand, and as I looked at the main door of the gas station, a wave of adrenaline surged through my body. The voices continued to whisper, as if they wanted to convince me to stay, to surrender to the darkness surrounding me. Jack. Jack. The sound was almost seductive, a hypnotic melody echoing in my mind. I knew I had to resist. With a determined movement, I approached the door. It's now or never, I murmured to myself, trying to muster courage. Most drivers who entered here never came out. The thought chilled me, but the need to escape was stronger. I placed the key in the lock and turned it with force. She made a dry sound, but the door didn't budge. A sharp chill crept up my spine, and I felt that something was wrong. Panic began to take hold of me. No, 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 I yelled, trying to force the door. The door needs to open. My hands were trembling, and the desperation grew with each passing second. I recalled a passage in the diary that spoke about confronting fears. Confront what binds you. A phrase echoed in my mind. What did I truly fear? The darkness? The unknown? Or was it the idea of never seeing daylight again? "You can't keep me here!" I shouted, my voice reverberating in the empty store. The whispering intensified, as if the shadows were laughing at me. "You can't leave, Jack." I heard a deep voice, almost familiar. I didn't know if it was real or just a hallucination brought on by the terror I felt. My heart raced, and in a moment of clarity, I realized I needed to face this head on. "I am stronger than you," I declared, challenging the forces that held me captive. The door began to vibrate, and a cold breeze blew behind me, as if something was trying to pull me back. I felt the icy wind against my face, and with an instinctive motion, I gripped the doorknob tighter. "I will get out. I won't be a victim any longer." With a sudden push, I shoved the door with all my strength. To my surprise, it creaked open, as if reluctant to let me go. The desert stretched before me, under the starry sky, but a sense of despair still lingered in the air. The cold that enveloped me was intense, and as I crossed the threshold, a gust of biting wind seemed to try to drag me back inside the station. "No, I won't go back," I shouted, running toward my truck. Each step felt like a struggle, as if the desert itself wanted to keep me trapped. The smell of oil and fuel was a momentary relief, but the feeling that something was watching me was ever present. I looked back, and for a brief moment, I saw the dancing shadows at the gas station door, as if they were bidding me farewell. I raced to my truck, my hands shaking as I tried to open the door. The engine was still running, but the idea of being stuck there any longer terrified me. Once inside, I slammed the door shut and started the engine. The roar of the diesel engine was music to my ears, but the tension remained, like a wire stretched to its breaking point. "Calm down, Jack. You can do this," I murmured to myself, trying to ignore the feeling that something was about to catch up with me. I pressed the accelerator, and the truck surged down the road. I glanced in the rearview mirror, but the darkness behind me seemed to swallow the gas station, which was now fading into the distance like a mirage. I escaped, I thought, but the feeling that something was still following me wouldn't let me rest. The road ahead seemed endless, and the desert around me was a lonely vastness. What had really happened back there? What had I left behind? The questions echoed in my mind as I continued down the road, and the only certainty I had was that the struggle was far from over. The despair I had felt inside the gas station wasn't just a memory. It was a shadow that continued to follow me, promising a new challenge. The morning light began to break over the horizon, dispelling the darkness that surrounded the gas station. With my heart still racing, I finally pushed the door open and stepped out of that cursed place. The feeling of freedom was almost palpable, but fear still consumed me. I ran toward my truck, feeling the sandy ground beneath my boots. Upon reaching the vehicle, my hand trembled as I tried to start the engine. The familiar roar of the motor echoed in the silence of the desert, and for a brief moment, I thought I was safe. "Get out of here, Jack," I whispered to myself as I slammed down on the accelerator. Dust kicked up behind me, as if the desert itself was trying to pull me back. I looked back, and a chill ran down my spine as I saw the gas station slowly disappearing in the rearview mirror. Yet, the feeling that something was following me was undeniable. With every kilometer I traveled, the anxiety grew, as if an invisible shadow was closing in. "It can't be true. It was just one night," I spoke aloud, trying to convince myself. Still, the doubt lingered. What happened during those hours I was trapped? What was that gas station really? Unanswered questions haunted my mind, and the road, which once felt familiar, now turned into a maze of uncertainties. As I drove, I couldn't help but remember the pages of the diary I had read. The whispering voices echoed in my head. "Confront your fear," they said, but how could I confront something I didn't even understand? My thoughts were a storm, and each curve in the road seemed to lead me back to that gas station. Finally, I spotted the entrance to Los Angeles in the distance. The city looked like a mirage, shimmering under the sun's rays. Yet, even with the safety of civilization within reach, a sense of unease accompanied me. I was about to enter a new reality, but the thought that something might still be pursuing me wrapped around me like a heavy cloak. When I arrived at my destination, I parked the truck and stepped out, my legs trembling under the weight of what I had faced. Life in the city continued. People hurried past, oblivious to the terror I had lived through. A feeling of solitude overtook me, as if I were the only human aware of the dark forces lurking in the world. I need to know what happened, I murmured to myself as I walked through the bustling streets. The noise of the city was deafening, but I couldn't shake the echo of the voices still whispering in my mind. It was as if the gas station was always present, an indelible mark on my soul. I decided I could no longer ignore what had happened. I needed to investigate and learn more about those mysterious disappearances of truck drivers. The idea that others might be going through the same situation left me restless. If I had managed to escape, others might not be so fortunate. It was time to act, to confront whatever lay hidden in the shadows of the desert. I didn't know where to start, but one thing was certain. The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it. With a new purpose burning inside me, I stepped into a nearby cafe, turning on my phone and searching for information about the cursed gas station. The journey was just beginning, and the mystery surrounding that fateful night had yet to reveal its true face. Now retired, I had dedicated my days to investigating what happened to the missing truckers. Each morning, I awoke with a sense of urgency, as if each untold story was a scream crying out for help. The sun was already high when I arrived in a small town in the Nevada desert, where the dust danced under the intense light. As I entered the local diner, the smell of fresh coffee and frying bacon greeted me. But I was more interested in the people. "You're Jack Thompson, aren't you?" asked a robust man, his gaze mixing curiosity with caution. He introduced himself as Roy, a truck driver who had spent years on the road. What began as casual conversation quickly transformed into an intense recounting. As Roy spoke, I felt my heart race. "I had a dream the other night," he began, staring into the depths of his cup as if searching for answers. "It was about a gas station in the desert. Shadows danced, whispering. They made promises, Jack. Promises I couldn't understand." His words brought back memories of those terrifying hours when I had been trapped. "You were there, weren't you?" I interrupted, my voice trembling. "On that fateful night." He looked me in the eyes, and a flicker of uncertainty passed over his face. "Yes, I was. I was with a group of drivers. We all felt something evil." He hesitated, as if painful memories were holding him back. "But what scares me most is that while I was dreaming, I saw you inside the station." His words echoed in my mind like a bell tolling on a cloudy day. What did you see?" I asked, anxiety swelling in my chest. "You were smiling, Jack, as if you were waiting for something. Or someone. You didn't seem scared. You seemed at peace." The revelation hit me like a punch to the stomach. I hadn't been at peace that night. There had been nothing peaceful about being a prisoner of forces beyond human understanding. "But that doesn't make sense," I murmured, trying to process what Roy had said. I was trapped, desperate to escape. How could I be smiling? He shook his head, his face reflecting the confusion that also dominated my mind. "I don't know. Maybe you found something there that we couldn't see. Something that trapped you, yet at the same time, calmed you." He leaned forward, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Jack, you need to find out what really happened that night. Whatever called you to that gas station is still there." A chill ran down my spine. The idea that something awaited me in that darkness was terrifying, but at the same time, a spark of determination ignited within me. "I will find out. I can't leave it like this," I replied, with a firmness I hadn't felt in a long time. As Roy spoke, The shadows in the diner seemed to stretch and twist, as if they were paying attention to our conversation. I glanced around, sensing a presence, an echo of what I had lived through. "What do you know about the other missing drivers?" I asked, changing the subject to divert my attention from my own unease. Some said they heard voices, others claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky. Most never returned. The road can be treacherous, but there's something more, something we can't explain. He looked out the window, his eyes lost in the vastness of the desert. "The road has its secrets, Jack. You need to be prepared for what you'll find." As he spoke, a sense of déjà vu washed over me. It felt as if I was about to cross once more the border between reality and the unknown. What had I truly found that night? And what awaited me in the shadows of the desert? I left the diner with a newfound determination, but also a growing anxiety. The mystery was far from resolved. As I walked toward my car, I noticed the shadows beginning to form around me, promising a new challenge. Something was approaching, and I was about to discover what really happened that fateful night. And so, dear explorers of shadows, we come to the end of yet another journey through the dark paths of the unknown. Jack Thompson's story reminds us that sometimes the true threats are not those we can see or touch, but those that reside in the depths of our own minds. How many of us have felt that unease while driving down a deserted road at night? That sensation that something is watching us from the shadows. Jack faced his deepest fears at that isolated gas station, but did he truly escape? The truth is, experiences that challenge our understanding of reality have the power to transform us forever. Jack may have left the station behind, but the memories, the nightmares, the relentless search for answers, all of that followed him like a shadow that refuses to disappear, even in the brightest light. And what about the other missing truckers? How many similar stories remain untold, silently echoing along the empty roads of the desert? Perhaps, somewhere between reality and nightmare, those lost souls still wander, trapped in an eternal loop of terror and confusion. But remember, explorers of shadows, true horror often lies not in what we see, but in what we imagine. The shadows that dance in the corners of our vision, the whispers we hear when we're alone. Are these the real monsters that haunt us? Before we say our goodbyes, I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever had an inexplicable experience on your nighttime travels? An encounter with the unknown that made you question the nature of reality? Share your stories in the comments below. After all, who knows? Perhaps your story will be the next one told here on Midnight Mysteries. Remember, darkness can be frightening, but it's in that darkness that we find the most fascinating stories. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and above all, keep facing your fears. For it is only by confronting the unknown that we truly discover who we are. I am Raven Shadowmere, and until the next episode, explorers of shadows, stay alert, for in the midnight shadows, the deepest mysteries await to be unveiled. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this story resonated with you. Perhaps it's the curiosity for inexplicable mysteries, or perhaps a silent courage to face what lurks in the shadows. Either way, I'm glad you stayed with me until the end. Now you know just how dark life on the road can be, and that not all truck drivers return from their roots in the same way. If you enjoyed this story and want to continue exploring the most disturbing and dark mysteries, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. This way, you won't miss any of the tales we bring to you on Midnight Mysteries. Oh, and don't forget to give us a like. It helps not only me, but you as well, ensuring that YouTube shows you even more chilling and intriguing stories like this one. Now, if you want to go further, share this video with your friends who love horror stories, mysteries, and truckers facing the inexplicable. Trust me, they'll thank you for it. You, explorer of the shadows, deserve my special thanks. After all, not everyone dares to confront the unknown with such bravery. I just hope that after today, You still have the courage to drive at night without thinking of Jack Thompson, or what might be waiting for you at the next stop. Why not check out one of our other videos now that YouTube will recommend more? Who knows, the next mystery could be even darker.